Right guys, welcome back to the video. Hope you're all having a sick day. We are training legs today, so I'm doing deadlifts, leg presses, extensions, curls, trying to get a PB on deadlifts. We'll see how it goes. I don't feel the greatest this morning after a shit night of sleep, but we'll see what happens. This is my last training week before a deload, so I'm quite looking forward to having next week away from training so I can just focus on work and everything else like that. But I'm going to talk about deloads towards the end. Let's get into the training and we'll come in with a voiceover. Alright guys, welcome to the voiceover, and in today's session, as I was saying in the car, I did deadlifts. So this is what would have been my last session before my deload by the time of recording this. Trying to work up to a PB because I've had this on my mind pretty much all week. So you would have seen in the previous clip there, that was just like a last kind of set warm-up. I always find with deadlifts that the best way to get into them is make sure your accumulation weights are always staying the same. So you want to just make sure you're always working at the same weights, so the warm-ups are always the same, they don't fatigue you, and they get you ready for all of your working sets. So that was 140. This is my top set. So I'm going for 5 here, and this is 225 kilos. So this is like the most I've ever lifted sumo. I've lifted 240 before in a conventional, but it was an ugly ass rep. So this is like kind of new territory for me for a sumo deadlift. Managed to get 5 here. The reps are pretty good. I'd like maybe just a little bit less bounce next time I do these, but it scared the living shit out of me. I'm not gonna lie. When I stepped up to the bar, as you would have seen with me getting into the weights, it scared the living daylights. And I think this is something which you've got to take away from your sessions and ask yourself, like, are the weights you're doing, are they scaring you? Are they making you feel nervous going in to lift them? And I know this is going to vary dependent on person to person, but the more something does scare you a little bit, the likelihood is it's going to be more challenging. Okay, and when challenging weights appear, you do kind of new things that you've never done before. And for me, that was something that I've never ever done before, even though it was only 5 kilos off of my highest weight that I've ever done. So you've just got to ask yourself, are you challenging yourself enough in your sessions? Are you really kind of taking it there when it needs to be taken there? And this is the back off set, so this is 200. I think I got this for a set of 9. Again, you'll see that they're moving a lot quicker than the last ones, obviously, because it's a little bit lighter weight. But it's funny to think that I think in the space of 3 or 4 months, I was doing 205 for sets of 5 to 6, and now I'm just repping 200 for easy weights. I probably had a little bit more in me, but in that last rep, I did end up hurting my back a little bit, and that's why I stopped there. So it's just one of those things which I couldn't really prevent because my back did have a bit of a twinge where it probably just wasn't warmed up as much as I would have liked it to. So moving on to lying leg curls. Probably one of my favourite machines in the gym at the one I train at. Absolutely love it. You can load up some real good weight on it. As you see, I've got 3 plates on the side here, so 60 kilos. And just doing, I think it was around about 8 to 10 reps on this. And it's probably something I could go a little bit heavier with, but I do find the heavier I do go from this point, my kind of glutes start to lift off the pad. And that's one of the things which you do want to try and keep in line is when you're doing these sets on a lying leg curl, try and keep the glutes on the pad as much as possible. So you want to almost, before each rep, clench your glutes, make sure your hips are thoroughly on the pad, and then curl. And that's going to be able to engage glutes, engage a little bit of hamstrings before you actually curl the weight, which is a fantastic thing to actually get better engagement from this movement. Because I do speak to a lot of people and they say they don't really feel it as much, and it really comes down to the initiation part of the lift, which I feel a lot of people miss out on. So I did about 3 or 4 sets on that. I didn't film every set because it would have went on forever. And then we move on to leg press. So I think this was sets to 8 to 10 again for this, and you'll see that I go pretty damn deep. I don't think I can get any deeper in terms of the reps here. A lot of people might say, yeah, it's a little bit too deep, it's past your active range of motion, but for me, like when I go all the way down to pretty much near my head with my knees, the feel in my quads is insane. And I can get really good feel by just opening up my legs, opening up my knees to be able to just get that a little bit deeper. So it's something that you might be able to try when you potentially next do this, just kind of slightly have your knees facing outwards. You should tend to get a little bit more depth on this if you are someone that does struggle for depth with this. Obviously just make sure you're warm when you're doing it as well. Okay, so it's now next week. We are officially starting the deload week, midway through now. We'll have a full 7 days off of training, and I'm going to talk about why I do that later in the vlog, but I'm going to just make some food now, make some lunch, see what I've got, and then I'll get into chat about why I have 4 weeks off during deloads and how you can structure your deload as well. So that is lunch done, so that's 4 eggs with 3 crumpets and some spinach, with then a side of cereal, because cereal is life for me. That was pretty much every meal. Just to help get the carbs in a minute, that's just easier than slamming loads of crumpets or rice down. We're going to eat this and then we'll get into the chat about deloads. Right guys, deloads, and what are they? What do you use them for? When should we take them? I'm going to be covering this in this little segment of this vlog, and it's a question that gets asked a fair bit at the minute. I think deloads is becoming quite a popular topic because I think more and more people are doing them and understanding why we should take them rather than just avoiding them, because they're not hardcore as people will probably put it. Like, they are pretty much a back off week of training. And there's nothing else that's really fancy to go with it. It is really just a back off week of training, and you can do it within 2 different ways, which I'll talk about in a minute. But the reason for why we take them is to prevent any kind of injuries coming. It's to make sure that we're obviously making further progress within our training blocks, and just allow us to actually back off a little bit. Because you take this like scenario, if you were to train for 6-8 weeks straight, you'll probably make incredible progress. But as you get towards the end of those 6 to 8 weeks, you're probably going to notice a few things. So you're probably going to notice maybe some niggles starting to appear, like your back might be sore, you might have a little bit of a niggle in your shoulder. You might start to notice that you're getting a little bit more fatigued during your workouts, so you can't hit the same numbers you were hitting before. Maybe your progress has slowed down quite a bit. And there's all these factors which leads to the fact that you've probably pushed very hard over the last training block or mesocycle, whatever you want to call it, and now we need this back off period. It's like a car, it can't go on forever without needing a service, otherwise it will break down. And it's the same with our bodies. If we just carried on for forever and ever and ever and ever, we'd eventually pick up a big injury, and we'd end up leading to needing to take more time off training than needed. As if we just actually had a week off training or a week backing off, we could allow ourselves to recover and then actually move forward. And that is effectively what a deload is. That's the dog's new bark collar. He scares himself every time he sneezes. But anyway, yeah, so there's 2 ways of performing the deload that I like to do. So for me, I prefer to do just a total week off. So I don't train during a deload week. I just don't enjoy going in to do a lower volume week. I'd rather spend the time catching up on some work, seeing like some clients obviously do their check-ins, and just kind of updating things and doing some improvements to my business, rather than spending time going into the gym and wasting an hour where I'm not getting much from that workout. And I found in the past that I recover better when I have a full week off, as opposed to going in for these kind of quick 45-minute sessions, lowered volume, okay? And there's obviously the benefits to both, with obviously the benefit of what I'm doing. I've got more time to obviously do stuff outside of the gym. And then the other side of the benefits for an active recovery week, which is where you're still gonna go in the gym, you're gonna do reduced volume, so you usually cut the volume in half. So let's say you do 4 sets on a bench press, you're now going to do 2. Your intensity comes down as well, and you usually drop a little bit of load. So you might go to like RPE 6 to 7, and your load might drop by about 10%. So you're basically allowing yourself to recover by doing less load, okay? You're doing less volume and less intensity. So it's actually all in one, being able to give yourself that recovery that's there, but you're still getting blood flowing into the muscles, you're still getting obviously a bit of a pump, which is going to be good for you, because when you come into the week after, it's not like you've had a full week off of weightlifting. That first week back, when you have had that full week off, can always be a little bit hard to fully get back into things, and that's something that I notice, but I prefer the benefits of a full week off. So you've got the options there of what you prefer to choose. I just prefer the week off part, because I can get more done with regards to coaching than if I was just to go in and do like a quick session. It takes me kind of about an hour and a half out of my day to go to the gym, come back, walk home. So I'd rather just kind of take that time to not go to the gym and actually just focus on other things, and then allow me to fully recover, ready for the next week. So that's deloads really in its purest form. They're nothing overcomplicated. They're pretty simple, and they're easy to use into your routine. But they've got to be needed. Okay, you can't just take a deload every 4th week because you feel a little bit sore. They really need to be needed. They need to be taken at the right time. You can't just take one just out of the blue because you feel like taking one. You've still got to keep progressing your training, and when those signs that I talked about earlier start to come into play, like progress not coming, you feeling super sore all the time, your DOM's never recovering, feeling a few injuries maybe starting to come back, then it might be the right time to take a deload. With my clients, I usually just call this when their fatigue starts to pick up and when they feel like they are at their point, at their max point. Then we tend to take one, and then we'll get into a new block the week after. If you've got any questions, guys, on deload, obviously just let me know in the comments, and obviously remember to subscribe and comment if you have any questions that you want to ask, and I'll see you in the next video.